And I'm going to give you viewpoints. I'm going to give you my viewpoint, and then we're going to always end with, the viewpoint that is God's and not the opinion of man. So what does this mean, this great day of the wrath? Doesn't mean it's literally, some people believe that it's literally going to happen this way. Like literally, the great day of the Lord's wrath, literally the sun will turn black. And literally the sun will be red. And literally the stars, plural stars of the sky, will plummet to the earth. And it also talks about the shaking and mountains being moved. Many people believe, especially the futuristic, those who believe in this, they believe that it's literally going to happen that way. View one. View two is that this great day of the wrath is more of a warning of some sort of catastrophic things that are going to happen. And then view three, the great day of the Lord's wrath is the power of God on display against what? Evil, against evil. Through dramatic, earth-ending, notice the word, imagery. So, you want to know the answer? How many of you guys want to know the answer? Here's the answer. I don't know. I really don't know, because God has the power to do whatever he wants to do. I don't think it's literally going to happen like number one, where literally there's going to be the sun is going to be darkened, the moon red as blood. I don't think it's going to happen because a couple reasons. One, we see this catastrophic imagery happen 2 other times other than this passage with the trumpets and the bowls in the book of Revelation. I don't know about you, but if one star, just imagine the sun is a star. If the sun fell on the earth, not only will it fall on the earth, this is the sun, that's the star, that's the earth, right? You with me on that? It would annihilate us. You with me? So if it's literally number one, it means, here's the answer. If it literally happens, when I meet you in heaven one day, I'll say, okay, it was number one. You're right, it was number one. You got the point? I don't think that the mountains will literally be moved from their places and the islands moved from their places. I don't think that's what he's talking about, because if it happens, we will no longer be here. And maybe that's the point that he's trying to make. But maybe it is number two. I think it's number three, but maybe it's number two. Number two, it's just there's some sort of catastrophic events that are going to be happening against evil of the world. And why do I say that it could be maybe number two? Because we see that throughout the Egyptians, how the Egyptians were against God, and just in the small pocket of the world in Egypt where the Israelites were, the sun was darkened, there was blood in the water and all this stuff that we'll be talking about in the weeks to come. But I want to encourage you that could God do this? Yes. And from the bottom of my heart, the reason why he did this to the Egyptians is because they rebelled against God. That was the bottom line out of the entire thing. But God also protected the Israelites during this catastrophic event. So could it be number two? Sure, because it's happened before. Is it? I'm leaning to number three. Because the book of Revelation has continued to be a book of imagery, symbols, metaphors about God being powerful, God being in authority, God being over all, even his creation that he has created. So, ladies and gentlemen, there are a lot of possibilities to do with this text. And like I said, jokingly but seriously, if there is the sun darkened, and by the way, if the sun does darken, we will freeze to death. And if the moon turns red blood, that means some of the seasonal issues are going to happen. So, a lot of possibilities, but let me just share with you something you might not have thought about. So again, like I said, this is an open-handed belief. These are some things that you might disagree with me. Hey, we can go to McDonald's with a mask on afterwards and disagree together. That's fine. But we're going to agree over the last bit at the very end of the sermon. So out of some research, this number three view is this. The great earthquake was more of a figurative of speech, a symbol of a shaking of a state of anxiety on the earth, a shaking and an overturning of the earth. Something is off a little bit. So a shaking of the earth. And then we see the sun become like sackcloth. If you know any of what's happened in the Old Testament, especially, they would put on, when they grieve and when there's a devastation that happens, they would put on what? Sackcloth. They would put on sackcloth so that they can grieve. So the imagery here is the sun, and with all of his brilliance and brightness and light, he puts on sackcloth as he's grieving, meaning, could this mean that there's this state, because of the shaking, there's this state of anxiety that results in sadness? The moon, like blood, red is always, all throughout Revelation, is always about evil, and bloodshed. So could this be this bloodshed of humanity and God causing people to die? Now the stars fell from the earth. Let me read Revelation chapter 6, verse 13. It says this, "And the stars of the sky fell to the earth as," and this is just interesting how they just throws this in there. And I've studied this many, many times, and I just kind of breezed through this, but it's phenomenal as you think of this imagery. "As a fig tree sheds its winter fruit when shaken," earthquake, "shaken by a gale," kind of like a wind coming through. So let me just pause on this fig tree for example. This winter fruit was not ripe, all right? So it was not ripe. So as you have, anybody ever went apple picking? There's these apples that you can go pick, and you're like, in the ripe ones, you just have to tug on. I mean, you just have to get it off. You with me? Even you have to get some tweezer thingy-mabobbers and cut it off because it's firmly connected. But then when you walk around, and you have to wear your mud shoes or whatever, you walk around, and they're all around the tree, there's dead apples everywhere. And if you talk to farmers and all these people in orchards, they would say that those fruit never were going to become mature, and they fell by themselves with a wind gust that fell through. Sort of the same thing. The stars fell, and we'll talk about what the stars could be in a second with this imagery. But no matter what, we have to understand that this fruit that it's talking about was not mature. The maturity of this fruit, even though it looked like fruit, it fell off in the middle of a quick storm that came through. It was immature fruit, and it fell. So the stars, there's three different ideas, could be more, but stars sometimes represent the prince of the rulers in spiritual or physical realms, like Revelation chapter 12, verse 4. We've heard this before. I've taught through this before. But the third, so imagine, this is a revelation, so imagery, but it's not literal. The tail of the dragon, a third of the stars, swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them down to the earth. And by the way, like I said, that's imagery. Would you agree? That's imagery. We know that because of the dragon, and in context, that was Satan being kicked out of heaven, and the third of the angels were taken down with him, and they now are called what? Demons. So imagery, so we can see that it's talking about the stars from the sky being flung down to the earth. We can clearly see that was powers of the spiritual realm, but also we can hear that it's princes and rulers even in the physical realm. Could this mean, with the stars falling down and this ripe fruit not being mature, that there was a collapse under God's wrath? There's a collapse of a